Today we will discuss about the Harrod-Domar economic growth model, and especially we will start from the Harrod economic growth model. So when after the Second World War, many countries got their independence, and then they concentrated upon the growth of their economies, and for that purpose they had to follow certain models of economic growth which has been developed by the stylized factors of growth in the developed economies. So, and among these growth models, Harrod-Domar model is the most simple model and the first model. This model is basically the projection of the long run projection of the short run Keynesian analysis, and capital has been given the most importance, that is, it is the capital is the crucial factor of economic growth in this model. And so adjustments through the adjustments of supply and demand for capital, an economy can achieve the steady state growth according to this model. And also another model is they have also followed another model, which is Joan Robinson's model of technical progress, where through the capital formation efficiency of the capital can be increased, and as a result of that technological progress happens and growth happens. So these two models have been followed by the Harrod and Domar in their model. And so in Keynesian model, Keynes said that for equilibrium saving investment equality is necessary, and also through the increase in investment income increases through the multiplier process. So this line of thinking has been incorporated in their model, in Harrod and Domar model. And another one is technical progress, the concept of technical progress and productivity, increase in the productivity, and as a result of that growth happens. This line of thinking has been which is developed by Joan Robinson. This has also been followed in Harrod and Domar model. So these two lines are all, both these theories have been taken into consideration. So there are the general assumptions of this model is, first of all, a full employment of income exists in the country, full employment level of income, that is, all the factors are fully employed. There is no government interference in the market, that is, it is a free market economy. Economy is a closed economy, that is, there is no international trade, no export, import, etc., nothing is there. And there are no lags in the adjustment of the basic variables, that is, savings, investment, income, expenditure, all these variables, they adjust themselves within the same period of time. They do not take any time in order to adjust themselves. So that is another assumption. Now another assumption is average propensity to save, that is S by Y, is equal to marginal propensity to save, that is delta S by delta Y, and both propensity to save and capital output ratio, that is capital coefficient, they are constant. So law of constant return operates in the economy, and income, investment, savings are all net values, that is depreciation amount has been excluded from all of them, and saving and investment are equal in the ex ante perspective and ex post perspective. That is, in the accounting sense there is equality between saving and investment, and in the functional sense also there is equality between saving and investment. Now based on all these assumptions, let us discuss about the Harrod model of growth. Harrod model of growth actually raises three basic questions. First of all, how can steady growth rate be achieved for an economy with a fixed capital output ratio and a fixed saving income ratio? Second question is, how can steady growth rate be maintained when even if it has been achieved, how can this growth rate be maintained? What are the conditions for maintaining the steady uninterrupted growth? And the third question is, how do the natural factors put a ceiling on the growth rate of economy? Now, to discuss all these issues, first of all let us talk about three different concepts of growth rate which has been developed by Harrod. Firstly, it is the actual growth rate G, which is the growth rate determined by the actual rate of savings and investment in the country. That is, it can be defined as the ratio of change in income divided by actual income, that is delta y by y. This is called actual rate of growth. Now, actual rate of growth is determined by saving income ratio and capital output ratio both. Both the factors are taken to be fixed at a given period of time, and there is and then this relationship between the actual growth rate and its determinants are given by the equation 1 of Harrod model. GC equal to small s. G is the actual growth rate, C is delta k by delta y, that is capital output ratio in dynamic concept, and small s refers to saving income ratio in the dynamic concept, that is delta s by delta y, which is also equal to s by y, as I have already mentioned in the basic assumption states. So, this relation states a simple truism, that is saving and investment are equal in the ex post concept, in the ex post sense. So, it is clear from this derivation that we can from this equation 1 we can achieve actually saving investment equality. How? G equal to delta y by y, C equal to delta k by delta y, that is I by delta y. Delta k means change in capital stock, that is investment. So, I by delta y, and small s is s by y. So, delta y by y into I by delta y equal to s by y, that is I by y equal to s by y, that is I equal to s. So, this relation explains that the condition of achieving the steady state growth is that ex post savings must be equal to ex post investment, that is realized savings must be equal to realized investment. Now, come to the definition of the warranted growth rate. Warranted growth rate refers to the growth rate when it is of the economy, when the economy is working in its full capacity. So, therefore, it is also known as full capacity growth rate. This growth rate is denoted by GW and as the rate of growth of income required for full utilization of the growing stock of capital, so that investment is as its optimum level and entrepreneurs are satisfied with that level of investment. So, warranted rate of growth is determined also by capital output ratio and saving income ratio. So, that relationship is expressed as equation 2 of the Harrod model. GW into CR equal to small s. Here CR means the required C needed to maintain warranted rate of growth, and S is the saving income ratio. So, let us discuss the issue that how can we achieve the steady growth rate. According to Harrod, the economy can achieve steady growth rate when G is equal to GW and C is equal to CR. That is, if we put GW and CR in place of G and C in the equation 1, then we can get the equation 2, and when we can get the equation 2, then economy gets its steady growth rate. So, this condition states firstly that actual growth rate must be equal to warranted growth rate, and secondly capital output ratio needed to achieve the actual the steady growth rate should be equal to the required capital output ratio and given the saving coefficient. So, this amounts to saying that actual investment must be equal to the expected investment at the given savings rate. So, if that can happen, then economy can achieve the steady growth rate. Now, after achieving the steady growth rate, the question arises that how can it be maintained. So, the questions of instability of growth arise. So, we have already stated that equality between G and GW and C and CR, these two things are required in order to get the steady state growth. Now, if the economy is a free economy, free market economy, then these conditions will be satisfied only rarely. So, Harrod analyzed the situations when these conditions are not satisfied. There are two cases: when actual growth rate is greater than warranted growth rate, then actual capital output ratio is less than required capital output ratio, and second case when actual growth rate is less than warranted growth rate, and then actual capital output ratio is greater than required capital output ratio. Now, let us discuss the first situation where G is greater than GW. Now, growth rate of income becomes greater than growth rate of output. That means demand for output will exceed the supply of output. GW is the growth rate of output, which is the maximum level of growth rate of output, because it is the full employment growth rate of output. But G is the growth rate of income, which is higher than growth rate of output. So, as a result of that, there is higher income in the hands of publics, and as a result there will be a situation of excess demand, and this demand will exceed the supply of output because output level is lower. So, there will be insufficient goods in the pipeline, or insufficient equipment. As a result of that, there is insufficient equipment. In such a situation, there will be secular inflation, because actual income grows at a faster rate than that allowed by the growth in the productive capacity of the economy, because productive capacity of the economy does not allow that high level of income. So, there will be deficiency of capital goods, and the actual amount of capital becomes less than required amount of capital. C is less than CR. Under this situation, desired investment will be greater than savings, and aggregate desired savings investment, because there is high demand in the market, so demand for commodities in the market. So, therefore, desired investment will be higher. Entrepreneurs will desire to invest more, but the amount of savings and aggregate production will fall short of that. So, but then amount of savings will be less than, actual savings will be less than this desired amount of investment. So, there is a excess demand for investment, and excess demand for investment in the investment market, and aggregate demand will fall short of, aggregate production will fall short of aggregate demand. So, this will create chronic inflation, and this is illustrated by this figure. Here income 1A, panel A, here income is taken in the vertical axis, growth rates of income, and time in the horizontal axis. So, starting from the initial full employment level of income Y0, actual growth rate G follows the warranted growth path up to point E, where time period is T2, but from T2 onwards G deviates from GW and becomes higher than GW, and in the subsequent periods deviations between these two becomes larger and larger. The actual growth path never comes back to the warranted level of growth path. And on the other hand, in the second situation, when G is less than GW, the growth rate of income will be less than the growth rate of output. As a result of that, there will be excessive goods, there will be supply of excessive goods for sale, but income will be insufficient to purchase these goods. So, this is the Keynesian situation, typical Keynesian situation, and according to Keynes, there will be deficiency in the demand, and consequently economy will face the problem of deflation. So, desired investment is less than actual savings, and as a result of that aggregate demand is less than the aggregate supply. As a result of that, there will be fall in output, employment and income, and this would thus be a chronic depression situation. And in this situation, this can also be explained by C and CR, that is C is greater than CR. Actual level of capital would be larger than required amount of capital for investment, since investment is insufficient. So, the larger amount of capital will be available for investment, but they will not be used. So, this will dampen the marginal efficiency of capital. Marginal efficiency of capital will decline in the long run, and so secular decline in the marginal efficiency of capital will lead to the chronic depression, and since production is insufficient, so this will lead to unemployment. And this situation is called the secular stagnation situation. This is illustrated in figure 1b. Here starting from full employment level y0, the economy grows in the same warranted growth path up to point E, that is up to time period T2. But beyond time period T2, the growth falls, actual growth falls and goes lower and becomes lower than GW and goes lower and lower. So, gap between GW path and G path increases and G path never comes back to the GW path. So, therefore, there is chronic depression and unemployment in the economy. So, from the above analysis, it can be concluded that steady state growth implies a balance between G and GW. In a free enterprise economy, it is difficult to strike a balance between G and GW, as these two are determined by altogether different sets of factors. So, a slight deviation from G to GW will lead the economy away and further away from the steady state path, and therefore it is called knife edge equilibrium, that is as narrow as the edge of any knife. So, Harrod states that once G departs from GW, it will depart further and further away from equilibrium, and he wrote that around this line, that line of advance, which if adhered to would alone give satisfaction, centrifugal forces are at work causing the system to depart further and further from the required line of advance. Thus the equilibrium between G and GW is a knife edge equilibrium. For once it is disturbed, it is not self-correcting. It is not coming back to the actual level, required level of growth path. It follows that one of the major tasks of public policy is to bring G and GW together in order to maintain long run stability. And for this purpose, Harrod introduces his third concept, that is the concept of natural growth. Natural growth, what is called natural growth rate? Natural growth rate is determined by the natural conditions of the resources, that is labor force, natural resources, capital equipment, technical knowledge, which is naturally given in the country. These factors place a limit beyond which the expansion of capital, the expansion of output is not feasible. So, this limit is called full employment ceiling, that is up to the point where all these natural factors are fully employed, the production can be increased, and beyond that production cannot be increased. So, this is the ceiling and this is called full employment ceiling. This upper limit may change as the production factors grow or technical progress takes place. Only when the technical progress takes place, this upper limit increases. Otherwise, given the amount of all these resources, this upper limit remains constant. Thus, the natural growth rate is the maximum growth rate which an economy can achieve with its available natural resources. So, here comes the third fundamental relation of Harrod's model, showing the determinants of natural growth rate, that is Gn into Cr is either equal to S small s or not equal to small s. So, for the full employment equilibrium, Gn must be equal to GW must be equal to G, but this balance is a knife edge balance. So, Gn into Cr may be equal to S. If it is equal to S, then there is the balance everywhere. So, then there is Gn equal to GW equal to G. So, then there is steady state growth, but if it is not equal to S, then the balance is disturbed. For once there is any divergence between natural, warranted and actual rates of growth, conditions of the secular stagnations, rate of growth, conditions of secular stagnations or inflation would be generated in the economy. If this balance is disturbed by somehow, then the economy will never come back to the same level and there will be divergence, and there will be the situation of secular stagnation or there will be the situation of inflation in the economy. So, how these three growth paths interact with each other, the growth paths of G, GW and Gn. Harrods point out that if GW is greater than Gn, secular stagnation will develop. In such a situation, GW is also greater than G, because Gn is the upper limit of G. Gn is the upper limit. Gn, that is the rate of growth which can be achieved only if the economy uses its natural supply of all the resources. So, Gn at the existing circumstances, Gn is the upper limit of G. So, if Gw becomes greater than Gn, so Gw becomes greater than G also. And when Gw exceeds Gn, C is greater than Cr, that is there is excess capital goods due to shortage of labor, and shortage of labor keeps the rate of increase of level of output to a level less than which is required for GW. So, output is less than what is demanded. Machines therefore become idle and there is excess capacity in the market. This further dampens the investment, output, employment and income. So, therefore, economy will be in the grip of chronic depression, and savings will be a curse for the economy. Savings is not at all encouraged in this economy, because that will more and more savings will take place, more and more the economy will fall in the grip of the chronic depression. So, this situation is denoted in this the panel A. Here G, the economy starts from Y0, that is full employment level of income, and then G is G and Gn, that is the same path up to point E, that is up to time period T2. But then since Gn natural growth rate is less than the G and Gr, so there is the G cannot increase beyond increase along the path GW beyond point E. So, therefore, actual growth path G falls after a certain point of time, and it keeps on falling, and it falls into the grip of the chronic depression. So, this is the situation denoted in panel A. Now, if GW is less than Gn, this situation is shown in the figure 2b. This situation, tendency for secular inflation will develop in this situation in the economy. Since GW is less than Gn, C is less than Cr, so shortage of capital goods will be there and labor will be excess, there will be excess supply of labor will be plentiful. So, profits will be higher than desired, profits are high, profits are actually very high. So, therefore, desired investment will be greater than realized investment, and businessmen will have the tendency to invest more and more by increasing their capital stock. So, therefore, the demand for capital stock will be very high, and as a result of this, but there is shortage of capital. So, therefore, there is excess demand in the commodity market, but due to the shortage of the capacity of due to the shortage of the required stock of capital, production cannot be increased to the desired level, investment cannot be done to the desired level. So, therefore, excess demand will prevail in the market, and as a result of that there will be secular inflation. In this situation saving is very much welcome. Saving is a virtue, because if saving increases, investment will also increase, and as a result of that production can be increased and it can meet up the increased demand in the market. As a result of that, inflation can be decreased. So, this is explained in the panel B. Here GW is less than Gn, and so therefore, economy grows from starts from the Y0, that is full employment level of growth, and then goes on the warranted growth path up to point E, up to time period T2. But then since natural growth rate is higher than warranted growth rate, then economy grows on, because there is no trouble for the economy to increase its demand. So, therefore, demand for investment, demand for commodities and goods and services all increases at the same level. So, therefore, growth level G path actually surpasses the GW path, and there is excess demand in the market. As a result of that, the economy will fall in the clutches of the secular inflation. So, this instability in the Harrod's model is due to the rigidity of its basic assumptions. They are what are these rigidities? Fixed production function, fixed saving output ratio, fixed growth rate of labor force, all these things are assumed to be fixed. Economists have attempted to relieve this rigidity by permitting capital and labor substitution in the production process, and by making the saving ratio a function of profit rate, and growth rate of labor force is as a variable of growth process. So, the policy implications in order to economists have experimented all these things in order to eradicate this inherent problem, that is the knife edge equilibrium problem of instability. To eradicate these problems, they have introduced certain flexibilities in this basic Harrod model. So, what are the policy implications of this model? What can the government do under such a situation? That is, that saving is a virtue in an inflationary gap economy. If there is an inflation, high inflation in the economy, saving will be very much welcome, because savings will increased savings will increase investment, and as a result of increased investment, production will increase, and as a result of that, demand and supply in the commodity market will come back to the equilibrium, and so the inflationary gap will be eradicated. But then savings will be a vice in case of deflationary gap in economy, because the actual investment is very high here, desired investment than the desired investment. Already it is excess investment in the market. So, if saving increases in such a situation, this will increase investment further, and so deflationary gap will increase. So, therefore, saving is a virtue in a inflationary gap economy, and saving is a vice in the deflationary gap economy. Thus, in an advanced economy, saving output ratio, that is small saving, has to be moved up and down according to the situation of the economy. So, this is what is all about the Harrod model of growth, and in the next class I will talk about the Domar model, which is a certain upgradation of the Harrod model of growth, and then we will discuss it both of them jointly and compare among themselves.